When Obi-Wan's starship touched down on Tatooine's dusty surface 2 weeks later, young Anakin Skywalker was waiting at the landing pad, practically vibrating with excitement. He'd packed his few belongings in a small satchel, ready for his new life. The boy's face fell as Obi-Wan approached alone, no other Jedi in sight, his steps heavy with reluctance. Where's Master Ki gone? Is he waiting at the temple? The question hung in the air like a blade. Obi-Wan knelt to meet the boy's eyes, seeing too much of Qui-Gon's faith reflected there. I'm sorry, Anakin. Master Qui-Gon, he's become one with the Force. He's dead? And I'm afraid the Council has decided not to train you. The words hung in the desert air like a death sentence. Shmi Skywalker emerged from their hovel, her maternal instincts alerting her to her son's distress. Her hand found Anakin's shoulder as his face crumpled, dreams shattering like glass. But he promised! He said I'd be a Jedi! He said I'd see the stars! Is there nothing to be done? I'm sorry. The Council's decision is final. They believe he's too old, that the risk is too great. I'm not too old. I can learn. I already know things. I can see things before they happen. That's why I can race pods. I know. I'm sorry. I have to go. As Obi-Wan's ship lifted off, leaving twin trails in the sandy atmosphere, neither he nor the Council could have imagined what they'd just set in motion. Because Anakin Skywalker wasn't just any slave boy. He was the chosen one, conceived by the Force itself, and the Force doesn't abandon its chosen, it just finds different paths. 6 months later, Watto's dice clattered across the gambling table at Maz Espa's seediest cantina. The air was thick with smoke from a dozen species' recreational habits, and credit chips gleamed in the dim light. Ha! Triple sixes! The boy's mine again, Shmi. Fair and square, eh? Should never have bet him in the first place. Good thing that Outlander's luck ran out, yeah? Yes, Watto. Anakin, now back under Watto's ownership, grew into adolescence with a chip on his shoulder the size of a bantha. But something else grew too, his connection to the Force, wild and untamed as the Tatooine desert itself. Without Jedi training to channel and restrict it, his abilities developed in ways the Order would have found deeply disturbing. By 16, Anakin had become something of a legend in the pod racing circuits. They called him the Ghost Racer because he could make impossible turns, dodge debris before it appeared, and somehow his pod never quite exploded when it should have. Other racers whispered that he could slow time itself, though they usually attributed it to spice or too much sun. In the garage late at night, when Watto was passed out drunk on Corellian ale, Anakin would practice, not with a lightsaber, he didn't have one, but with the Force itself, raw and unfiltered. He'd levitate engine parts, assembling complex machinery without touching it. He'd reach out with his mind, sensing the emotions of everyone in a 3-block radius. Their fears, their hopes, their hidden shames, all laid bare to his expanding consciousness. Once, when a gang of Rodians tried to rob him, he'd waved his hand and convinced them they'd already taken his credits. Wait, didn't we already? I could have sworn. You got what you came for. Move along. Yeah, we got what we came for. Come on, boys. They'd walked away confused, checking empty pockets while Anakin returned to his work. How did you do that? It's like magic. I just know things, feel things, like the whole universe is whispering secrets if you know how to listen. The Jedi would probably say I'm doing it wrong. Is it dangerous? Using whatever it is without training? Everything's dangerous for a slave, Kit. At least this danger is mine to control. But control was an illusion, and the Force had darker lessons to teach. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. We thank you all for your continued support. Then came the night that changed everything. Anakin was 19 when the Tusken Raiders took his mother. He'd felt it through the Force, her terror, her pain, her fading life signature calling out to him across the desert like a beacon of agony. The sensation hit him in the middle of a race, causing him to crash spectacularly. But he walked away from the wreckage, stole a speeder bike, and raced into the dune seat, following that invisible thread of maternal love and mortal fear. He found her in the Tusken camp, tied to a wooden frame, broken and dying. The Raiders had kept her alive for sport, for slow torture. Her face was swollen beyond recognition, but she managed to open her eyes to see him one last time through the haze of pain. Annie? My son, you came. I'm here, Mom. I'm here. I'm gonna get you out. Too late, but I got to see you one last time. So proud, my beautiful boy. No, Mom, please. Hold on. I can save you. I can. So proud, my son. Now I am complete. And then she was gone, her body going limp in his arms. The rage that erupted from Anakin Skywalker that night shook the Force itself. His scream of anguish became a wave of telekinetic fury that flattened tents and sent raiders flying. The very air around him crackled with dark energy, sand melting to glass beneath his feet. He moved around the camp like a desert storm given form, and the Tusken's guttural cries of fear were swallowed by the howling wind of his fury. When the twin suns rose, not a single Tusken remained alive. Not the warriors, not the women, not even the children. The camp was a crater of glass and ash, as if the desert itself had swallowed it whole. He buried his mother as dawn painted the sky purple and gold, his tears mixing with her blood on his hands. That's when the vision came, hitting him with the force of a great dragon's roar. In his mind's eye, he saw armies of white-armored soldiers marching across burning worlds. He saw cloaked figures with lightsabers, locked in deadly combat. He saw younglings cowering in fear, a blue blade igniting in darkness, and at the center of it all, he saw himself, but wrong somehow, encased in black armor, more machine than man, kneeling before a crackling figure on a throne. He heard a mechanical breathing, felt the prison of life support systems, tasted the copper of eternal regret. No, that's not me. That will never be me. I won't be anyone's slave, not anymore. Not to Watto, not to the Jedi, not to whatever that thing on the throne is. He stood, fists clenched, and made a vow to the uncaring stars. I'll forge my own path, and if the galaxy burns for it, so be it. The years that followed saw the rise of a different kind of legend. They called him the Sandstorm, the Desert Wraith, the Liberator. Working in the shadows, Anakin began uniting the forgotten people of Tatooine. Slaves, moisture farmers, even reformed smugglers. He moved like smoke through the underworld, always one step ahead of Hutt enforcers and bounty hunters. His network grew slowly but surely. In hidden caves beneath the Dune Sea, he established training grounds. He taught combat skills to former slaves, showed moisture farmers how to modify their equipment into weapons, and most controversially, began training force sensitives he discovered among the forgotten populations. His first lightsaber was an ugly thing, cobbled together from mining equipment and a cracked kyber crystal bought from a drunk Rodian who claimed he looted it from a dead Jedi. The blade burned unstable and orange, spitting sparks like an angry welding torch, but it cut through chains just fine. You sure about this, Annie? The Hutts don't take a rebellion lying down. They have armies, connections across the galaxy. Then they'll take it dead. Every empire built on the backs of slaves falls eventually. We're just accelerating the timeline. And the Jedi? What happens when they find out you're training Force users without their permission? Their permission? They had their chance to train me, to stand against slavery. They chose their code over compassion. Now I choose freedom over their fear. The Bonta Eve Classic had always been Tatooine's grandest spectacle, drawing crowds from across the Outer Rim. It was the perfect cover for what Anakin had planned, a coordinated strike that would break the Hutt's power in a single day. As dawn broke on the day of the race, Anakin stood atop a cliff overlooking Maz Espa, his cloak whipping in the wind. Below, thousands of beings had gathered. Humans, Twi'leks, Rodians, Gamorreans, even a few Jawas who clicked excitedly about profit margins. His army of the Forgotten, trained in secret for years. Today, we remind the galaxy that Tatooine belongs to its people, not to slugs who treat us like property. When the race begins, every eye will be on the pods. That's when we strike. Slave quarters, spice warehouses, weapons depots, all at once. What about Jabba's palace? I'll handle Jabba personally. It's time the mighty learned to fear the meek. The Bonta Eve Rebellion, as history would remember it, began with explosions. As the podracers screamed around the track, drawing every eye and guard in the city, Anakin's forces struck with coordinated precision. Slave quarters were breached, chains were broken, and for the first time in centuries, the Hutt's iron grip on Tatooine began to crack. Anakin himself had led the assault on Jabba's secondary palace, his unstable lightsaber carving through blast doors while he deflected blaster bolts with casual waves of his hand. His mastery of the Force had grown beyond anything the Jedi would recognize, wild, passionate, fueled by righteous anger rather than serenity. When Jabba's enforcer, a massive Jedi warrior named Dirge, challenged him, the crowd of freed slaves watched in awe. You think you're the first to challenge the Hutts, boy? I've killed dozens like you across the centuries. No, you've never faced anyone like me. The battle was brief but spectacular. Anakin moved like liquid lightning, his orange blade leaving trails of fire in the air. When Dirge regenerated from seemingly mortal wound, Anakin simply lifted the brute with the Force and held him there, suspended like a puppet. You want to know the difference between the Jedi and me? They would let him go, trust him to make better decisions. They believe in redemption through mercy. He clenched his fist slightly and Dirge's eyes bulged. I believe in redemption through consequence. But he didn't kill him. He dropped the unconscious warrior and turned to the crowd of newly freed slaves, his lightsaber casting dancing shadows on their faces. Spread the word across the Outer Rim. Tatooine is free space now. and anyone who tries to enslave another being here will answer to me. We are no longer property. We are no longer forgotten. We are free." The crowd erupted in cheers that shook the ancient walls of Maz Espa. Word of the uprising reached the Jedi Temple within weeks, carried by panicked merchants and fleeing Hutt associates. Master Plo Koon stood before the council, his mask unable to hide his concern as he delivered his report. The Force signature is unmistakable. It's the boy, Anakin Skywalker. He's not just alive, he's become something unprecedented. He's teaching other Force sensitives, creating his own order. They call themselves the Free Force Users. Impossible. Without proper training, he should have fallen to the dark side years ago. That's just it. He hasn't fallen. Not exactly. He uses anger, yes, but directed, controlled. He's created something new, neither Jedi nor Sith. A mistake we made. Powerful he has become, but trained by anger and loss. Dangerous this path is. See where it leads we must. If he's training others, he could destabilize the entire concept of Force usage in the galaxy. The Senate will demand action. Then we act first. Send a delegation. Offer him what we should have given years ago. It was decided. Obi-Wan Kenobi, now a respected master and general in the growing Clone Wars, would return to Tatooine with a diplomatic envoy. The Jedi would offer Anakin what they denied him decades ago, a place in their order, recognition, legitimacy. The meeting took place at sunset in the same slave quarters where Anakin had once shown Qui-Gon his podracer. But now the quarters had been transformed into a meeting hall, banners of freedom hanging where chains once bound. Anakin stood before them not as a boy, but as a man, 25 years old, scarred by desert winds and harder choices, surrounded by warriors who looked at him like he'd hung the stars. "Hello, Obi-Wan." "Anakin, you've grown. Funny what happens when you leave a plant in the desert. It either dies or grows thorns." He gestured to the assembled Free Force users, former slaves with lightsabers, children practicing telekinesis, a Twi'lek woman meditating while floating 3 feet off the ground. "How are you here?" "The council wishes to extend an offer. Full knighthood, no questions asked. Come with us, help us end this war." Anakin's laugh was bitter as the desert wind, cutting through Obi-Wan's words like his lightsaber through Durasteel. "Now you need me? When there's a war to fight, suddenly the slave boy is worth something? When the Republic needs warriors, suddenly age doesn't matter? That's not... You left me here, Obi-Wan. You all did. You looked at a 9-year-old boy who just lost the only father figure he'd ever known, and you sent him back to slavery because he was too old. Too dangerous. Too much. Anakin, I was young. I was grieving. I should have fought harder. And you know what? I should thank you. The Jedi would have made me a weapon for the Republic, another soldier in their holy war. Instead, I became something else. I became free. Master Plo Koon stepped forward, his tone diplomatic but concerned. You're training Force sensitives without proper guidance. That path leads to the dark side. The Sith. Dark? Light? More Jedi simplicities. I've walked in both and found them wanting. The Force isn't about your codes or your councils. It's about connection. To the land, to the people, to the pain and joy of actually living. Something you've forgotten in your ivory tower. The Force requires discipline, control. What you're doing here is dangerous. What I'm doing here is giving people hope. Teaching them that power doesn't have to come from governments or guilds or ancient orders. It can come from within. Every slave I free, every child I train, they're not your failures. They're my victories. Anakin, please, I know I failed you, but the galaxy needs... You didn't fail me. You showed me exactly what the Jedi are, and that's why I'll never be one. He turned his back on them, addressing his followers who had gathered to witness his historic confrontation. Let them go. Tell the Republic and the Separatists alike. Tatooine is neutral ground. We'll trade with both, fight for neither. And if anyone brings their war to our doorstep... He ignited his lightsaber, the unstable blade casting dancing shadows across the ancient stone. They'll learn why the desert preserves things, because it's unforgiving, because it remembers, and because some things, once lost in the sand, should stay buried. As the Jedi departed, Obi-Wan looked back one last time. Anakin stood silhouetted against the binary sunset, neither Jedi nor Sith, but something entirely new. Something the galaxy hadn't seen before, a Force user who served neither order nor code, but the people themselves. In the years that followed, the legend of the Desert Ghost grew. Some said he could walk through sandstorms unharmed, the sand parting before him like a curtain. Others claimed he'd learned to speak to the great crate dragons, riding them across the Dune Sea. Ships that tried to bring slaves to Tatooine found their navigation systems mysteriously failing, depositing them in Republic space instead, their cargo holds empty and their crews unable to remember how it happened. Palpatine sensed him, of course, that brilliant supernova in the Force that should have been his apprentice. The Chosen One, burning bright and free in the Outer Rim. But every probe he sent to Tatooine disappeared. Every spy went native. Every Sith assassin returned in pieces, if at all. The desert had claimed the Chosen One, and the desert didn't give up its own. He should have been mine. That power, that potential, wasted on freeing slaves and teaching hedge wizards. Perhaps, my lord, we could still turn him. Offer him what the Jedi wouldn't. No, he's beyond turning now. He's found something more powerful than the dark side. Purpose without masters. We must adapt our plans accordingly. Without Vader, the Emperor's plans adapted but never quite recovered. Order 66 still came, but messier, incomplete. The Jedi survived in greater numbers, scattering like seeds on the wind. And always, there were whispers of sanctuary, a place where Force users could learn without dogma, where freedom meant more than ancient philosophy. The free Force users of Tatooine became a third option, neither Jedi nor Sith, attracting those who sought a different path. They learned to fight with passion, but not hatred, to use their power for protection, but not domination. It was messy, sometimes dangerous, but it was theirs. 20 years after the Empire's rise, the hidden city beneath the Dune Sea had grown into a thriving sanctuary. Anakin, now in his 40s, had taken a wife from among the freed slaves, Kyra, a former dancer who had helped coordinate the Bonta Eve uprising. Together they'd had 3 children, all strong in the Force, all trained in the ways of freedom rather than dogma. Their eldest, a daughter named Shmi after Anakin's mother, had become his greatest student. At 19, she moved through the desert like her father once had, a legend in her own right. She led raids on Imperial slave ships, always staying one step ahead of both Imperial forces and curious Jedi. Another successful run, father. 300 freed from a spice mine transport. The Empire is getting desperate. They've doubled the bounty on desert wraiths. Good work, but be careful. The Emperor's attention grows stronger. I can feel him searching, probing. He knows something significant stirs here. The children have been having visions again. The same one, a figure in black arriving at our gates. Vader, the Emperor's enforcer. My visions show him too, but strange. In some futures, he comes as an enemy. In others, the conversation was interrupted by a commotion outside. A young moisture farmer had somehow penetrated their defenses, following an old map he'd found in his uncle's belongings. He stood at the entrance to the Forbidden City, eyes wide with wonder and recognition. I'm looking for Anakin Skywalker. My father, Klieg, told me stories before he died. Said if the Empire ever came for us moisture farmers to find the desert ghost, said he'd remember the Lars family kindness to his mother. Owen? Little Owen Lars? You've grown. Your father was a good man. He tried to save my mother from the Tuskens. Come, you're welcome here. As Anakin led Owen into the city, he reflected on how different things might have been. In another life, another timeline, perhaps Owen would have been hiding a different child, protecting a different secret. But in this reality, the Lars family were simply moisture farmers who had shown kindness to a slave woman and now sought sanctuary from an empire that grew more oppressive each day. The desert keeps its secrets, but sometimes, just sometimes, it shares them with those brave enough to seek them. And in that moment, as Anakin stood with his daughter Shmi and welcomed the Lars boy into their sanctuary, the galaxy's fate shifted once again. The Force had found a different path, not through a chosen one who would bring balance through destruction and redemption, but through a man who chose to break the cycle entirely. Anakin's children would not be hidden heroes waiting for their destiny. They were warriors of the present, raised in the light of freedom rather than the shadow of prophecy. Word spread through secret channels. There was a place where Force sensitives could learn without chains, where former slaves could become teachers, where the Empire's reach faltered against the endless sand. Some came seeking power, others seeking peace. All found something different than they expected. And in the highest tower of his hidden city, Anakin Skywalker continued to teach, to build, to defend. Not as the Chosen One, not as Darth Vader, but as something the galaxy had never seen before. A Force user who'd rejected destiny itself and lived to tell the tale. The storm was coming, but this time it would sweep away empires, not build them. And it would be carried not by one man's fall and redemption, but by thousands of free beings who'd learned that the Force belonged to no one. In the end, that was Anakin's greatest victory. Not that he'd avoided becoming Vader, but that he'd made Vader unnecessary. The galaxy would find its balance not through a prophesied savior, but through the collective will of those who'd learned to save themselves. Under the twin suns of Tatooine, the desert bloomed with possibility. If you enjoyed this journey into the shadows of what might have been, remember to hit that subscribe button and join us for more explorations of the infinite possibilities within that galaxy far, far away. May the Force be with you, always.